The Giants lose their fourth game in a row with another fourth quarter collapse. Getting deja vu. What else is new? Welcome back to the Empire State Sports Report. I'm your host, Adrianna, also known as New York Giants fangirl on social media. The podcast is brought to you by Believe Network and FanDuel Sportsbook. FanDuel Sportsbook is your number one place to make all of your sports bets. They have no sweat parlays, they have boosts, anything you name it. FanDuel Sportsbook has it. Download the app today and make sure to always bet responsibly. You guys, the amount of stats that I have seen in the last, 25 minutes, and every single one of them gets worse than the last, is something that I didn't think was possible. Let's start with this. The Giants are 0-4 in road games where they have been winning by at least 10 points going into the fourth quarter. Okay, there's that. Then how about this? The Giants defense has allowed 127 points over the last 4 weeks, and 73 of those have come in the fourth quarter. 57.4% of the points they have allowed came in the fourth quarter over the last 4 weeks. I'm not done. Are you ready? This one is my favorite of the bunch, truly. Okay, let me just pull it up for you because I think you're just going to be like, this is insane. It's actually insane. So today against the Bears, they had a 96.9% win probability. So basically 97%. Against the Cowboys, they had a 94.6% win rate. And against the Broncos, this is the best one. They had a 99.8% win rate. So in 3 games where they have ultimately lost, they're 0-3 in these games, they had a minimum of a 94.6% win rate. And I reading that and just like reading it over and over and understanding how literally insane it is, I'm like, does someone need to be investigated at this point? Because it's starting to be like this isn't a conspiracy, but like it could be a conspiracy, because to have a minimum of a 95% win rate with only a few minutes left in the fourth quarter, and you go 0-3 in those games is actually mind-boggling and very, very hard to believe. I literally cannot believe it. Especially after the whole NBA debacle. Then Jeff Passan was tweeting today that we had some pitchers from the MLB get arrested because they were gambling. So the NFL is next, and I just know Roger Goodell must be shaking in his boots because I think they're going to find some stuff. And look, it's probably not going to be the Giants, and it's not going to be Brian Daboll. I'm like kind of joking here, but I'm also like, you got to look at that at some point and be like, something is just not right, you know? And we all know it's the coaching, but it just feels like it's bleeding into something else. A 95% chance to win with a few minutes left in the game, a minimum of a 95% chance, and you go 0-3 in those games. It's just insanity, like really insane. Just like this, the fact that we lost Jackson Dart to a concussion and Russell Wilson was quarterback 2. And what also is insane is that I am 99.9% sure, because this is how the Giants do things, is that they don't want to hurt Russ Wilson's feelings. So he's going to be the quarterback 1 on Sunday against the Packers. Because if you know anything about the Giants and their players this season alone, the guys who have had concussions have not cleared concussion protocol. It's taken them a minimum of 10 days, which means that we are absolutely not seeing Jackson Dart on Sunday against the Packers. So, and they're not going to make Jameis quarterback 1. Why would they ever do that? It's like, why would they ever trade Banks when they got a phone call from the Colts about it? It was reported on ESPN. And say what you want about ESPN, I don't think Jeremy Fowler and the 2 other guys who contributed to that article are lying. Why would you include that out of nowhere if it's not true? Same shit, different day. That's it. That's it with this team. Okay, let's start with the offense, because it was functioning again for the most part. Not great in the red zone, but functioning. Jackson Dart, 2 rushing touchdowns. Jackson Dart, 19 for 29 for 242 yards. 169 yards rushing. Jackson Dart accounted for 66 of those yards. Tyrone Tracy, 14 carries, 71 yards. Devin Singletary, 8 for 20. Russell Wilson, 2 for 12. Okay, I want to talk about the run game for a second because they obviously couldn't get anything going until the fourth quarter. And I don't know if the Bears were just tired or they made bad adjustments or what, but I was like, wow, this is nice to actually watch this team run the ball kind of successfully. One of the things that I talked about in the pregame was that it was going to be hard to run the ball against this team. We got to try, right? You always got to try. But I did say that they should have success in the passing attack. And lo and behold, they did. 22 receptions for 287 yards. We need to talk about Darius Slayton, who said, I heard you guys talking shit about me. I'm going to go 4 for 4 for 89 yards and make the most insane one-handed grab that you've seen since OBJ. Darius Slayton made an insane one-handed grab. Beautiful. I'm like, here we go. Guys are stepping up. How about Theo Johnson? Out of 8 targets, he catches 7 for 75 yards. He also said, I heard you guys talking shit. Not today. Wan'Dale Robinson, not as great. 6 of 11, but still 62 yards. Daniel Bellinger. Oh man, I was so disappointed on that touchdown. What should have been a touchdown. Unbelievable throw by Jackson Dart. Would have been a great catch. Real close. But Bellinger was 1 for 2 for 8 yards. And then Singletary, 3 for 3 for 53 yards. Contributor in the passing game. Gunner, 0 for 2. Tracy, 1 for 2 for 0 yards. Still, 287 yards. That's what they needed to do. And, you know, if the defense could get a stop when it mattered, if Brian Daboll didn't make the dumbest decisions you've ever seen in your life, we get a win here. Because the result of this game, which we can talk about the defense, and we will, but I immediately knew, as I'm sure everyone else did, that as soon as Jackson Dart went into that blue tent and took it that one step further and went into the locker room, we all knew we're going to lose this game. And it was less about the players. I mean, part of it was obviously about, concerns about Russell Wilson coming in the game. But the biggest concern that I had is that Daboll does what Daboll does, which is not coaching to win like what other coaches do. No. Daboll coaches not to lose. But the thing about when Daboll does that is that the irony is that they still lose the game. So I can't understand for the life of me why you wouldn't try to actually win. Since you're trying not to lose, but you still lose. So why don't you, oh my God, be aggressive and try to win? No. Why would we ever do that? What a crazy concept. Crazy. So then Russell Wilson comes in the game and he's basically not allowed to throw the ball, which, to be honest, I don't really blame them. The last time Russell Wilson tried to throw the ball, it didn't go well. But when you have a quarterback who likes to dive into people and go head first into other players' helmets for fun, maybe, just maybe, you should consider your backup quarterback that being allowed to throw the ball. I don't know. Again, another insane concept from just a silly podcaster like me. What a crazy idea. But no, we're going to stick with Russell Wilson. And then they get to the red zone and surprise, surprise, they're having struggles running the ball again, but they can't let him throw it because last time he was in the end zone, he just threw it into the locker room because that's what quarterbacks do in the red zone. Why would they take 1 second and try to throw it to someone who's open? Again, crazy concept. No, I'll just throw it away 4 times in a row. So now fast forward weeks later, oh my God, we're in the same boat. And you can't run the ball because Jackson Dart is one of the only people on this team who can run the ball when Scadaboo's not on the field. So, but we can't throw it. We can't trust our 37-year-old quarterback who's a 10-time Pro Bowler to throw the ball. Nope, that is unacceptable behavior. So we're going to kick the field goal. Now, I don't really have a problem with kicking the field goal. My problem is that you're afraid to let your quarterback throw the ball. That's the bigger problem here, right? I mean, I would have liked 7 points there, but again, you basically didn't let your quarterback throw it on the whole drive. So why would you let him do it now in the red zone? Again, a crazy concept. So no, let's not do that. And then, we're not going to do that. So we're only going to be up by a magical 10 points with what at that point? I don't know, 7 minutes left in the fourth quarter, maybe more. Who knows? It doesn't matter. Does it matter? Honestly, not really. It could be 15 minutes left in the fourth quarter, or it could be 2 minutes left in the fourth quarter. We're still going to lose. That's what we do. That is what the Giants does best, is they lose football games in every creative possible way that you could imagine. Today, It was not allowing your quarterback to throw the ball. We're not going to allow him to do that in the multiple possessions that he had. Okay. So, but we have a kicker. We do not have a punter who made one great punt and then botched the next one. No consistency yet again with this football team, but we have a kicker. At least we didn't have to fight and argue over whether or not we were going to see 38-year-old injury prone Graham Gano out there. At least one thing was certain. Our kicker can do it. Oh my God, what a relief. What a crazy relief. So nice. We have a kicker. Great. You know, the thing that's so upsetting to me is the lack of accountability, that it's just the same thing over and over again, and just nothing changes. We're watching the same insane decisions over and over again. And, you know, like nothing is going to change. Everyone's like, they have to fire Dable. I'm like, okay, well, they had multiple opportunities to fire Dable because they have blown multiple double-digit fourth quarter leads since Brian Dable has been the coach, and they've done it almost every week in the last 5 weeks. And I don't want to hear anymore, you know, that my thing is like Dable is probably just like, oh, well, it's Shane Bowen's fault. And if you fire him midseason, you know, look at what Jackson Dart in my offense is doing. And then look at the defense, like look at all this talent we gave him. And I can't fire him because who's going to be who's going to call the plays? Are you going to trust Andre Patterson, who's never done it before, to do it? But if I'm John Mara, it's like, I'm 2-8. I don't give a flying fuck. So, you know, Dable has survived worse, and so has Shane Bowen, which is why I'm like, why would this be the icing on the cake? You know, like, why would today of all days, not giving up a 33-point lead and then losing the game by 1 to Denver? No. Not letting your division rivals run for over 200 yards up and down the field. A starter and a backup had over 100 yards each to your division rival after we heard from you just in January saying you're sick of other teams run up and down the field on you. That wasn't enough. And then Christian McCaffrey and a struggling 49ers team who can't run the ball with Christian McCaffrey. Okay, has another incredible game against the Giants. So why would the Bears be the deciding factor? I don't know. If you have a good reason, let me know. But I just don't see it at this point. I'm like, there have been plenty of amazing opportunities for you to fire Brian Dable, and you could have given a laundry list of reasons why 5 weeks ago. So the Bears, really? The Bears are going to be, I don't know. I mean, listen, if that's what it takes, so be it. Give me Mike Kafka and let's see what he can do for the rest of the season. Great. I'm on board. But I'm not holding my breath, you know? So we're going to talk about the defense, but first, the podcast is brought to you by Believe Network and FanDuel Sportsbook. FanDuel Sportsbook is your number one place to make all of your sports bets. Let's talk some props. So speaking of everyone's favorite, we have the Packers versus the Eagles on Monday Night Football, which the only good news is that we're going to get to enjoy the Manning cast. So the Eagles, believe it or not, are not the favorites on FanDuel. That's right. They are the underdog at plus 100 to win, and the Packers are minus 118. The spread is 1.5 points. Now, obviously, A.J. Brown did not get traded, and, you know, everyone, I think, is waiting for a big game out of Micah Parsons. So, my dear Micah Parsons, this would be the week for you to do it. So, I would really love to see that. Would be really nice. Micah Parsons is minus 210 to record a sack, and Jalen Carter is plus 108. If you're looking for an anytime touchdown scorer, the favorite is, of course, Josh Jacobs, minus 155, and Saquon is plus 105 to win. The game is in Green Bay, so not so sure about weather, but that could be a deciding factor. So if you are looking to place a prop bet, a parlay, any type of bet for Monday Night Football, download the FanDuel Sportsbook app today and make sure to always bet responsibly. Man, do I have beef with the defense. It really starts with Shane Bowen. It does. But it ends with Tay Banks. And like I said, there was that report that came out that was talking about the Colts and the trade for Sauce Gardner. And it mentioned the fact that Joe Shane and the Giants were called about Tay Banks, and there was another team listed, and I can't remember what it was, but they called another team asking about a corner. And like I said, I believe it's a true report, because why would you put that in there if it's not true? It's completely unnecessary to the story. It's like 3/4 of the way down the article anyway. And if that is really true, that alone should be a fireable offense. And I don't want to hear that we don't have any depth there because Art Green is injured and he's on IR, and Paulson Adebo is still not healthy, and yada, yada. I don't give a fuck what the reason is, because do you know how many cornerbacks are on 31 other teams' practice squads? I don't know off the top of my head, but I would bet you it's more than one. And even if it was one, I would take him over Tay Banks. Inexcusable. The drive where Tay Banks got multiple penalties on one drive should have been enough for them to say, you know what? I'm done with you. Get off the fucking field and put Nick Jones out there. Don't care that he's a slot corner. Don't care that he is a practice squad guy. Don't care. Nope, not a good enough reason for me. I appreciated that he decided today was going to be a day where he was maybe going to tackle people. Great. Oh my God. So nice of you to decide that you're going to do your job on the football field and tackle people. You didn't get them to the ground most of the time, but at least you got your arms around them and slowed them down. Great. Good for you. Nice. So happy for you. Let's talk about the lack of sacks, because that is another thing that was really frustrating to me, because not only did Dexter Lawrence finally have a sack for the first time in this was game 10 in the 10th game, on a 3rd and 9, no less. So you're forcing them to punt. Okay. Cordell Flott, I love you. I think you've done an excellent job this year. I have not complained at all. That was a very fair DPI call, because what the fuck were you doing? You know better than that. And I know it was the first game back. I get it. Like last week, Jermaine Illuminor, this week, Jermaine Illuminor with the first game back looked a little, like confused out the gate. Okay, fine. I get it. It's your first game back, but like, figure it out, bro. You weren't out for months, So anyway, that was awful. Absolutely awful. Would have been really nice to have a Dexter Lawrence sack, and then they're punting there. And then it gets worse, because Abdul Carter finally gets a sack, and we're like, yes, we've been waiting for this for so long. Abdul Carter, yes. And then we all forgot that Tay Banks was on the field and ruined it, because that's what he does when he's on the field. So it's really upsetting. I also like the play with Flanagan, Foles. I don't know. I've heard his name pronounced 5 different times. I'm going with Foles. Him being on the outside and blitzing unblocked to Caleb Williams and forcing that throw. I was like, oh my God, Shane Bowen, what an insane, crazy idea. You realize that you can blitz other people than the edge rushers. Now, I'd rather you blitz the edge rushers, but so be it. You got pressure. Why don't we see that more often? Why are you not aggressive? And I really dislike what Shane Bowen does as a coordinator. I think he's not creative. I think there's a lot of things not to like about him. But when you see a situation like what has happened in the last couple of weeks, I cannot start to question that maybe Bowen is playing not to lose, because that's what Brian Daboll is also doing. And that's what he's encouraging everyone to do, is play not to lose instead of be aggressive. Brian Daboll has come out and said in one post game after they lost again, because the defense did something stupid in the 4th quarter, he came out and said, maybe it was after the Eagles game when they won. He said, it was because it was also when the players were like, we had a meeting with Shane Bowen and told him we want to be aggressive. And Daboll says, I told him to be aggressive. Okay. Did you tell him to be aggressive for 1 game out of 10 games? And now I have to consider the fact that Brian Daboll might be part of the reason why Shane Bowen is not aggressive, because Brian Daboll is never aggressive. He plays not to lose, and they still lose. So, and I'm not trying to defend Shane Bowen and be like, he's not a bad coordinator. I'm just saying, like, maybe there's a reason why he's also not aggressive. And it's not because of the players, it's because of the coach. I think that's a fair conversation to have. I still do not want Shane Bowen retained. I still think he's a bad defensive coordinator. Let's make that very clear. But it stems from the head coach, right? You look at Dan Campbell, all of the coordinators are aggressive because it starts with Dan Campbell and he's aggressive. And he says, that's who I am. And I'm going to be that person every single day of my life. And I love that for him. And I wish that Brian Daboll had the tiniest bit of Dan Campbell in him. And it's really upsetting to me that he doesn't. So anyway, this defense ends up with 0 sacks instead of 2. And Kayvon, I feel like had a really good game in the sense that he was all over the place. Like I watched him get pressure on the quarterbacks everywhere. I watched him make some good tackles. He helped a little bit in the run game, but the lack of being able to bring down Caleb Williams in a sack, I was just like, what is happening here? It was so close 100 times. And I'm like, you spent the whole offseason doing wrestling. And I think it helps because his tackling looks better, but not today. Not when it comes to sacking the quarterback. What is that about? What is the problem there? I don't know. And I felt like they were getting a lot of good pressure on Caleb Williams. And they also got blessed with a lot of drops. They were so lucky. I was like, oh my God, I almost feel bad for Caleb Williams because he's like shaking his head. He's throwing very catchable balls. They weren't perfect, but good enough. Like the receivers have to make a play. And I'm like, damn, I thought Jackson Dart was the only one who had receivers who literally drop everything that comes their way. And maybe Caleb Williams is also a victim of the same problem, especially when DJ Moore goes down. And then everyone was great. And the run game went back to, a bad run defense and a good run offense by the Bears. And that was it. Just a colossal failure again in the fourth quarter when the Giants were up by double digits and they should have won. They had 3 quarterback hits. Burns, of course, had 2. Flanagan Foles had the 1. Burns, another good stat line, tackle for loss, pass deflection, was close to having a sack. A lot of them were close a lot of the time. Like aside from the fact that 2 sacks that they should have had, Kayvon should have had at least 1. Like out of all the opportunities he had, the fact that he couldn't bring Williams down was super frustrating. And Burns was super close a couple times too. So I don't know, that was just really disappointing. Just overall, it's just disappointing to watch the same thing week in and week out. Doesn't matter who the opponent is. It doesn't matter. Like nothing matters. It's the same result week in, week out. It's this dark cloud of depression that is just over this building and seeping into the walls and seeping into everywhere. And I believe that Brian Daboll is a big part of that problem. They've been mostly losing since he's been here. But it does feel like the losing is in the walls because it has been an issue since Dave Gettleman and for years before that. And, I am begging John Mara and Steve Tisch to please hire someone from the outside who can help run this organization the right way because it's not being done that way right now. And John Mara wants to win games. And if he wants to win games, he has to make changes. And what sucks is that it's too late now. They're 2-8. They're not fighting for the division. They're not fighting for the playoffs. They're not fighting for anything. The only thing anyone cares about is our rookie quarterback. And guess what? He's not starting next week, which means that MetLife Stadium is going to be 90% Packers fans at this rate. And then I know John Mara is going to be pissed about that, but this is what happens. It is what it is. You're dealing with another losing season that potentially could have been prevented if you bring in a head coach like Mike Vrabel. And maybe you don't have Jackson Dart. Maybe you do have Jackson Dart. But what I do know is if we had Mike Vrabel and Jackson Dart, we wouldn't be losing as much as we are right now. That I know for a fact. So, maybe Russ Wilson is not on this team if Mike Vrabel is the head coach. Maybe Jameis is, maybe he's not. We don't know how things go in March. But I also think they need someone from the outside who's going to come in and do an audit and say, hey, maybe Chris Murray shouldn't be making these type of decisions. We get you're related and we get nepotism is a thing in the NFL, but you're part of the problem. So is O'Donnell. So is or McDonald. Tim McDonald. Doesn't matter. Some of those people who have been in the building are contributing to this. So, you got to look from the inside and look inside out. If you want to win games, you have to change things. And again, this season's a moot point. So start with the turnover now. Start building a new scouting department. Start building a new coaching staff. Start building new player personnel, because that's another part, like we just talked about, that needs some upgrading. So anyway, I won't get my hopes up that that's going to happen, but I am going to keep my fingers crossed that you never know. Maybe we'll get lucky. Maybe a week where Jackson Dart's not on the field and Russell Wilson is the quarterback one and looks like shit and it's all Packers fans. Maybe that will be enough for John Mara. I don't know. But like I said, it doesn't matter now. It matters for the long run. And we're towards the end of college football season. And I know that these scouts are doing their jobs and they're out away at games, scouting players. But you got to only keep the good ones. So I really would like to see them make some changes. And maybe it starts with Dable or Bowen. I don't know at this rate. But what I do know is that I will be back on Wednesday to talk about fantasy football. We'll do any Giants updates if there are any. And then we will also do some injury updates because, like I said, we're probably not going to see Dart this week. But maybe we'll have an update on him. And what else? We will also talk about what else is going on around the league. We'll do week 11 picks. So stay tuned for more. Subscribe to the podcast. Please rate and review and share with a friend. Thank you guys for listening. Go Giants.